Hey, so in this lesson we're going to talk about counting. So counting in violin music and any type of music is extremely important because that is the best way to keep track of time. So there are two different types of counting. The first type of counting is just kind of plodding along, repeating a set of numbers and then going back. So like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That would be regular counting. And you should always be doing that in any piece. So that counting is determined by the numbers at the very beginning of a song. So in the first video I talked about key signatures. In the same way, those determine the tempo. In a lot of ways, those determine the counting. So like for example, if it's a C, which means 4/4, or even a C with a /3, you can count in 4/4. Then that means that you count 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you also want to subdivide because that makes it more accurate. So actually, what you will be counting is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then as you get better and better, you can actually add more and more subdivisions. So you can go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. And then there's a really complicated 1 and a 2E. See, I can't even do that one. But the idea is that you can add more and more subdivisions. The second type of counting is what we do to check out different songs. Kind of like look at them and figure out how they sound before playing them. It's an effective sight reading technique. And for that, we count each note. So instead of going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we would, like for example, we would count the notes. So like for example, for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star would go 1 and 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, yeah, so that's how that would work. So let's take lightly row as an example. If we were to count lightly row, we would count it in 4/4. It's technically in cut time, but we'll use it in 4/4 for this example. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just keep repeating that. And when we, every time we repeat it, that represents the beginning of a new measure. So each beat, so each 1, 2, 3, or 4, will count as a quarter note. So, for example, the first measure while counting and playing at the same time, which you don't have to do, but will sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. With the half note getting 2 beats because it's a half note, and the quarter note's getting 1 beat because they're each getting 1 beat for every note. So to graphically show this, we will have 1 beat for every quarter note, 2 beats for every half note, etc., with each beat being counted as a number. If that doesn't make too much sense, try it yourself and use a metronome. So if you have a metronome app, turn that app on right now. For this app, hopefully you'll be able to hear mine in this episode. Metronome. There it is. So this is my metronome, and I would try to get one similar to this, where just a sec. Where there is a number explaining what beat you're on. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. If we're counting in subdivisions, we put an and in the middle of these. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Cool, so we're going to try to play lightly row with a metronome. So I'll play through that right now with this metronome going. And you can set whatever tempo you want. This is just a tempo that I'm comfortable with. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's how to use a metronome. So this next example is more complicated. You will have to set your metronome from 4/4 to 2/4, which you don't have to do, but it's just easier to practice with, which will make it so the number only goes to 2, like that, instead of all the way up to 4. So that's just that's kind of a nice feature. If you don't have that, just remember to count to 2 instead of 4. So this is where the ands come into play, because all of the notes here are going to be twice as fast. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. And because they're eighth notes, you just play on the and part. So, like, if you're playing with your metronomes 1, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So playing with the metronome can be kind of scary at first, but it's the best way to get down timing and tempo. And it also helps you figure out kind of what counting is all about, because counting takes a while to get used to. So when someone says to count, that's generally what they mean, is just to always have in your head 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's take Song of the Wind as an example again. So in this sort of counting, whenever you hit a rest, you say rest. And whenever you hit a single note, you don't count the and. So essentially what you're doing is you're counting like the song. You're counting the rhythm. And that just helps figure out, that's a good thing to do before you play a song to help you understand how the song sounds. So for example, on the Song of the Wind, it would be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, rest. 1 and 2 and 1, rest. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, rest. So let's look at the next one, Long, Long Ago, and apply counting to that as well. So we have another one in 4/4, which is a very common time signature, by the way. And now we've got a song that has, just like May's song, a lot of different different types of notes in it. So we've got quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, and if you've never seen a double rest before, that's what those lines are. If you look on measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the last measure, those lines represent a half rest. So a rest that counts a rest that will last for 2 beats. So now let's count through it one more time. Let's count through this song. I'll set up the metronome. So we'll count through this song, and we will. So first you do it, and then I'll do it, and you'll see if it matched up. Okay, cool. So it should sound something like this: 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1. Rest. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 4, and 1. Rest. Okay, cool. Random side note: when performing, always make sure that you wait the entire duration. It's like if we were in a recital, instead of going we would do this. And then you'd be done. So you always wait the last 2 beats. And that's always just important because sometimes the composer will write in 2 beats of silence or a set of silence just for the audience to kind of wait. Kind of hold suspense. Like, yeah, there are a few symphonies built like that and stuff, so, yeah. So I'm going to start the metronome now, and then we'll do this with the metronome. So this will be 1 and 2, crud. There we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, cool. So the last thing that needs to be talked about on Long Long Ago is the dynamics. I'm not sure how familiar you are with dynamics, but that's what is up with the MF and the F and the MP and all that stuff that's under the music notes. And then, yeah, essentially, if you see a crescendo, which is looks kind of like an alligator like this, that's how I always think of it. Or, screen is backwards. well, regardless, it will look like it will look like kind of an alligator, a greater than sign, and wherever the if it gets wider, that means get louder. So, for example, in measures 3 and 4, that is actually gets softer because they don't get wider. The alligator gets smaller. It's less than, or it's a sign that's going less because because the alligator is going from big to small. In fact, if you look at it, all of the alligators in a long, long ago were going to get big to small. So it isn't a song that we're getting constantly quieter, because if you ever see a dynamic mark, like for example medium forte or forte, forte just means loud. Then you jump instantly to that dynamic mark. So if you see a P or a P with an M by it, those both mean quiet. MP is kind of like slightly quiet. MP is like slightly loud, or moderately loud or moderately quiet. And then forte is loud, piano is quiet. So F means loud, P means quiet, etc. And yeah. So build those in there as well. Okay, cool. So for our next lesson, work on counting and work on all the songs that we've covered. And then we'll do new songs on the next. We'll learn new songs on the next lesson, and also just work on counting and reinforcing these skills. See you next time.